Welcome, everyone. We should be live right now. Welcome to our fifth episode in CHBA's webinar series, Working with Modular. I'm Frank Lohmann, CHBA's Director of Building Science, and I'm joined by Kathleen Maynard today, CHBA's Senior Director of Building Innovation, and the team from Big Block Construction in Saskatoon, Alex Miller, the CEO of Big Block, as well as Nick Sackville, who is Big Block's Vice President of Community Development. And Kathleen and I are part of CHBA's technical team that supports the CHBA Modular Construction Council, and Big Block Construction is a member of that council. Before I introduce today's speaker in a bit more detail, some housekeeping here. We have muted all participants so that there are no distractions, but we will try to make the webinar a bit interactive nonetheless. Firstly, you can ask questions throughout by writing them in the questions and answer panel. You can access the panel by clicking the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. I think it's a little to the left for you. If you do ask a question, let us know if you'd like to direct that question to someone in particular, so it is easier for us to moderate the Q&A session. We may answer some of your questions live at any time during the webinar or in writing, and this could be directly in the Q&A panel throughout the webinar, or directly writing to you after the webinar has ended, and if we have your email address. Secondly, on the question of being interactive, we will have a few polls for you, and when we launch a polling question, you will see the response function pop up. And we'll try that right now with the first question on the primary region where you and your business or organization operate. So, Chloe, if you could bring up the launch of the poll. Thank you. So everyone should now see the poll window. Please click on what you think is your primary region of business. And as we see the results fill in, we might see, oh, that sounds good. So we have a fairly even representation from BC, the Prairies, and Ontario, Quebec, some Atlantic, and some national. So that actually looks pretty close to a good national representation. That's great. Thank you, Chloe. Another housekeeping item, and also because it's a frequently asked question, please be aware that the webinar is being recorded and that the recording will be available on the CHBA website in case you can't stay to the end or you want to listen to a certain portion again. We will also post the slide deck to this webinar on the CHBA website on the Modular Construction Council page. The QR code on the slide here will get you straight to that page. Also, even though everyone's probably very experienced in Zoom or Teams or WebEx webinars right now, by now, just to remind you that you can manage your own view of the webinar and make the PowerPoint bigger or smaller by sliding the dividing bar or playing with the view choices that you have on this window. Okay, let me say a few words then about the webinar series itself and why we're giving it. The entire webinar series consists of 6 webinars. You can see the titles and the dates on the top right. Again, the QR code at the bottom right leads you straight to the page where we keep the recordings of all the past webinars. The purpose of the entire Working with Modular series is to provide information on the modular construction sector in Canada. For the entire series, we're hoping that building officials, municipal planners, and housing providers find an interest in what we present, as well as builders who are currently building homes on site rather than off site, or builders who have started experimenting with modular construction. We also hope that federal government departments and other stakeholders engaged in residential construction industry find the information useful and apply it in their work so that modular construction gets the credit it deserves. So let's try another poll right now to find out who is actually represented in today's audience. Thanks, Chloe, for bringing that up. So you have some choices here. Hopefully you'll find yourself in one of those. And if not, then you click other. This is also to help us show at the end of the entire series who we've reached. And by now, hopefully everyone who is participating has arrived. So Chloe, whenever you see that participation is reaching a good level, then you can show the results. Great. Okay, so we see a lot of builders, site builders, renovators, developers. That's great. A few modular builders, a few government architects and engineers, and manufacturers. We also have here code officials. That's great. We always like to see code officials, and even some lenders, possibly some insurers and warranty providers. I think that's a great representation. Alex and Nick, take note of who you're speaking to. Great. So, oops, I just changed slides. That was not intended to happen. Let me just see here. So at this point, we would also like to acknowledge the support of the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation in the development of the webinar series, as well as the Altus Group for their work in the project. In today's webinar, we will learn about a project that was part of the federal government's Rapid Housing Initiative. The showcase we have selected for you is the Horse Dance Lodge in Regina, Saskatchewan, which is an example of the power of partnerships and utilizing advancements in multi-unit modular housing development. The 29-unit supportive housing complex was craned in Regina over 2 days in April 2023 and completed just 5 months later. Designed and engineered by Indigenous-owned firms in collaboration with Big Block Construction, the complex is owned and operated by entities under the File Hills Qu'Appelle Tribal Council. Today, it is a transitional place for people in need of supportive housing, empowering them to move toward independence. Alex Miller and Nick Sackville will now take you on the journey of this project. And before Alex gets us started, I would like to introduce him and Nick to today's audience a bit more formally. Alex Miller is the CEO of Big Block Construction. Everyone who's met Alex knows that he's a passionate community builder. Alex has personal investment total of more than 400 million in new construction housing development to prove it. He now inspires others to take efficient action for successful development journeys. Alex will become president of the Canadian Homebuilders Association in 2025. Nick Sackville is the VP Community Development at Big Block. Nick is a collaborator at heart and works closely with community-minded groups to create a bridge of communication throughout the project journey. He has expertise in government, community, and stakeholder relations, and has worked in the housing industry since 2016. Nick was awarded the Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee Medal in 2023 for his significant contributions to society. With that, I will ask Alex to share his screen and to start his presentation. Alex, go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Frank, very much for that. Now let's see technology, right? Okay. I'm going to have to rely on potentially Nick and Frank to tell me that that screen is working.
Yep, we can see it. Thank you, Alex.
Okay, perfect. So, welcome everyone today. Thank you for taking the time. I love doing this in person. I love doing this standing up. I love doing this face to face. None of those things exist today. So I will do the best that I can, but I feed off of energy and off of signals and off of inquiries. So please help me out today. Please help Nick and I make this presentation as meaningful for you as possible. It's impossible to share everything. We have an amazing success story that we do want to share. And what we've done is we've worked hard to try to help us see the bigger picture and to help understand all the different parties that might be here today, what might matter to them, some problems and some solutions, and how it kind of ties into this project. So we're trying to be a little bit of everything to everyone, but we think that hopefully we can be clear. And again, if you want to get something out of this, I really, really hope that you ask questions, and just know that our information, you can contact us at any time. Happy to share more, happy to dive down deep into any one of these specific details. So anyways, very, very excited to share. And thank you, Nick, as our VP of Community Development, for joining. Our customers are both housing operators and housing developers. Nick manages the workflow for all of our customers and brings in both, different sales and operations teams and the services that we provide. And my job is really help make sure that everything kind of stays on the tracks and understanding the bigger picture. And that's what I want to share today, because I think that's it's although we're going to talk about a really successful project that, from foundation to completion was 5 months, understanding how it fits into the bigger picture is kind of just as valuable, if not more, when it relates to some of the housing problems that we have. Of course, tying into it that this was modular, and that's the reason you're here in this series. Okay, so with that, and for some reason I am not seeing myself or you, Nick, so you'll just have to pipe up and say something. I don't know where it is, but that's okay. I think I can carry on.
No, you're good. I can see you.
Perfect.
And I think the audience can too, so you're good.
Great, just on my end. So I do want to start with the land acknowledgement. We are located on Treaty 6. The project that we're actually going to be talking about here is located on Treaty 4, traditional land of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and homeland of the Métis. And I actually think it's really important, us as developers, us as builders, us as development partners, and us as a part of the housing journey, that we understand our role in the land acknowledgement. I don't think it's something that is just to be put up there. I think it's something to respect and to pay tribute to. We can't build housing and we can't provide our services unless they are put in on a piece of land. And so I do like to start with this. I think it's really important. And how it ties into the truth and reconciliation, I think we all have a responsibility to build active reconciliation. I know ourselves at Big Block, as a non-Indigenous company, we've learned a lot, but we still have a lot more to learn. And it would also be, it's also important for me to share a little bit about our culture. I think what's made us successful over the years really is our culture, and it's all about partnerships. And for those who have worked with us, that's what we're about. We listen, we work together, we trust one another, we share risk, and we share success. And I'm going to talk about that today because I think sometimes when the risk gets too lopsided, and I'm going to share that in this project, we actually had to take unnecessary risk for this project to be completed. And again, sharing risk is one thing, but taking unnecessary risk, I think, is something we all have to pay attention to, because I do believe that it's kind of critical to the success of all housing projects. And so anyways, I'll unpack that a little bit later. And then finally, talking a little bit about our values. We live and die by these values every day, and we're excited to share this. So, like I said, our purpose at Big Block is to build communities at full throttle. I'll get into that a little bit later, but it's not to talk about communities or to design communities, or but it's actually to build. And what we found is through advanced construction methods, because that's what we are. We're a development partner, and we have expertise in modular construction, in advanced construction methods, in high performance net zero buildings. And in order to build to those standards and to build with that advanced construction methods, it really starts earlier than that in the design phase, and it starts even earlier than that in some of the pre-development work. So I'm going to talk about the modular piece today and how it fits in and how it was a success on this project, but understanding how the success of modular starts earlier in the design and even earlier in pre-development around the housing journey, that's what's critical. So we're about building communities at full throttle, and that's kind of our get out of jail free card, where, you know, if we have a housing crisis, it's our job to make sure that we're all aligned and doing this as fast as we can, and solving problems to ensure that we're actually meeting the needs of Canadians. So again, as a development partner, we help housing operators and we help housing developers and builders. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So let's see if this presentation is going to work. Okay, perfect. Now, nope, that's okay. I had to share screen anyways, so I need to do this. And apparently if you do this, the video works better. So bear with me for another couple seconds. I'm going to start with a project summary video. Basically, we just handed over, and actually this video, I gave a presentation similar to this last week in Ottawa for CHBA. We've tweaked it, but even the video wasn't ready back then. So it just became available here in the last couple of days. So I'm definitely excited to share this. Is it showing up on the screen, Nick?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. We got sound?
Yep.
To make a rapid housing project like this a success, it takes a lot of vulnerability, trust, true partnerships.
For me, this project was, well, it was the smoothest, quickest building that I've ever seen come together. I've worked on numerous buildings this size, and I've never seen one run as smooth as this one.
So this is an assisted living unit, so that means that the folks that are here would be at risk of houselessness or homelessness if they weren't receiving the supports that we're going to be offering them. And it is a wraparound of human support services, including mental health, addictions, wellness, and culture.
These kinds of projects really inspire us to engage in meaningful ways with our communities.
I think I feel really great that this space is a space of wellness so that the tenants here can, start moving forward and realize, their goals along the housing continuum.
I was able to tour the factory in Winkler and seeing the attention to detail that they put into these buildings, the efficiency, and the end product. It was amazing.
Big Block and Grandeur have been working together for well over 10 years now. We've had a great relationship with them.
Modular construction differs from stick-built in the way that we build it in a controlled environment. We build the entire project under a roof, and so everything's controlled that way. Grandeur has a very unique partnership with Big Block in that there's a very good understanding that's been built over a lot of years of working together. They have a good understanding of the process of the factory. They have a good understanding of what it takes to make a project happen.
I think it makes sense to go modular. There's a lot less interruption to neighborhoods by doing modular. There's a lot less noise, pollution, and whatnot created that way.
How this project came together shows the tenacity of partnerships and how when we all work together, we can actually build better communities.
Everyone who's come through the building has had nothing but good things to say about it, and we're really happy that it's going to be helping a marginalized group of people, so it's amazing.
The fact that, Big Block pulled together and was able to complete everything on time, it was amazing. It was a great job.
All right. Now, I believe if I share my screen like this, I should be back in business. Again, still can't see everyone, but I think
business.
It's working. Okay. Well, so thanks for that. That to me is our project wrap-up video. Really exciting. There's a lot of good information in there, and we'll start to unpack it a little bit more. And maybe actually before I do that, what I was going to say is, I think this is so we're going to talk about some learning outcomes on this project, but what we also found is housing can be complex, right? It doesn't have to be in certain senses, but at the same time, there is a lot of moving parts. And I believe we actually have representation on the call here today from all of these different groups. And so here's my point. We're going to talk about modular. We're going to talk about how it fits in on the design build and how we use it successfully. But I think it's really important that we understand the journey, and it's also important to understand how we fit in this journey, because there's a lot of moving pieces. And so, for example, why I think it's important to talk about the journey and all the different pieces and how this is a success. This is, to me, why it matters. So, for example, from a government perspective, what you should care about, or at least in our opinion with this project, you care about economic prosperity, developing strong communities, advancing reconciliation, and spending our taxpayer dollars wisely so that we can invest efficiently. And I think we've all seen times when that could have been improved. From a municipal perspective, understanding what our local current and future needs are and going to be, And as we grow and evolve communities, what that looks like, this fits right into that. Improving health and quality of our residents, influencing economical, social, and environmental impacts. We're going to talk about that with the energy efficiency. From an architect's perspective, I think it's important when you show modular how we can respect the history and share stories with our customers to help inspire the design, to put you in opportunities that you can win and really use modular to the best of its ability. Meaningful community engagement and celebrating culture. From a codes perspective, municipal standards, both from a protecting the public perspective, but also acting as both a regulator and a facilitator, and improving safety and well-being while understanding and improving productivity. And I think there's a big gap there. And we have some pretty cool solutions that we think really can help unlock us building better communities and actually solving some of the bigger problems. So that's going to be exciting to talk about. From an engineer's perspective, developing functional solutions, efficient use of resources, and incorporating industry-based design principles and best practices. From a manufacturing perspective, I want to talk about scaling up the manufacturing benefits, because modular, in my opinion, is a manufactured product on a larger scale. So how do we capitalize on that? And for those who run a modular plant or have been involved in it or manufacture other goods, understand the significance and the importance of supply chain and timing in manufacturing. And I'm going to pause here for a minute, because to me, everyone on the call, I believe, was asked around one of three things with respect to either you have an involvement in a modular factory, you're either thinking about doing modular on your next project, or you just want to know a little bit more about modular. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time later.
Actually, Alex, we haven't asked that poll. Do you want to ask that poll now? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, but you can. Sure, absolutely.
So Chloe just brought up that, and this is exactly the questions you just brought up.
Perfect.
The involvement of everyone. So if you can please click which of these categories fits you, and then Alex, you can use that in your presentation from then on. I would have otherwise reserved it for later, but that's good.
No, and Frank, and that's perfect. And I would love if questions are also coming in, and then there'll be a spot here in a few minutes where I'm going to pause and I'll check and see if there's any questions before we kind of move on to the next piece. So, yeah.
So Chloe, if you can show the results, there's the results. So it looks they're all interested, and some of them are thinking about it.
Well, you probably didn't have an option of no, this doesn't interest me. Although if that was the case, they probably wouldn't be here because it's a modular series, right? So I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of details around the modular benefits or the factory, because actually in earlier presentations, there was a modular 101. There was factory tour with Triple M out of Lethbridge. I think Sim and Rick did that. And there's some amazing resources already. And so I won't dive back into it. But anyways, just sharing that. One other piece on the manufacturers and suppliers is a lot of times what I'm seeing is from a manufacturing perspective, there's a lot of single family modules being built effectively and efficiently, and code standards aligned to allow that to happen. But we can actually evolve into more complex multifamily modules. And I think that's a really key area. If you listen to the minister and you look at to some of the missing middle, the opportunities for advanced construction really could fit here. And then of course, excuse me 1 second. From manufacturing's perspective, an opportunity to increase production volume, I think, would be of interest. And if we can really dial in a few of the pieces, that can happen. So from a utility perspective, why do we care? Evolving energy framework. Obviously, there's an impact on infrastructure and capital investments and building to a higher standard, building using modular practices, better building practices, and getting higher quality assurance levels. Reducing the energy load in buildings actually helps investments in infrastructure and large capital expenditures over the years to the tune of large dollars. Here, even in Saskatchewan, I've seen reports over the next 10 years by even just building to a little bit better standard, that it can have upwards of like $500 million of capital investment and multiple $billion throughout the life expectancy of those homes. And that's in Saskatchewan and about 1.1 million people. So if you think about that on a larger scale, utilities have a big role to play in the housing continuum, and it's important that we understand how the connection works. And then also insurers. Obviously, you're hearing a lot more about product resiliency. You're understanding about catastrophic loss and understanding reduction strategies and building better products. And then, of course, also as we change codes and as new policies come into play, understanding the impacts of change and unintended consequences. And as you build tighter envelopes, mechanical systems, moisture movement, attic rain, as for 50 years ago, a little thing that they learned, just lots of unintended consequences. So important to understand the circle. And again, this is not a be-all, end-all where this is exactly where they fit, but it's more just understanding that there are a lot of pieces to a successful project. And then lastly, I put ourselves as a development partner because I think what we've really proven to ourselves and to our customers and to our stakeholders is when we can really capitalize on everyone's or position everyone's strengths in project developments, then we can really help housing operators and housing developers build at scale. So I don't think I can. Oh yeah, there I can. Okay, so that was my goal, and I'm just going to maybe pause here for a quick second. And like I said, I just wanted to give a high level overview of some of the different messages and problems that we're going to talk about on this journey. But again, because I can't see anyone and I can't see, is there any questions out there? Maybe Kathleen, that we can take at this point?
We do have one question, Alex. Rick is asking, did the 5 months include factory fabrication time?
No, it did not. I can actually, I think, so now this is Prezi. This is not a PowerPoint. So I think I can just click on things, and that's the whole point of this. So great question. What I'm going to point at is, I think you can see my mouse on the slide here.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay. So on-site development. So from foundation right around here where my mouse is to project handover, this process was about 5 months. The modular construction happened a little bit before that, just before, and I'll talk about some of the permitting stuff. But of course, all the integrated design happened prior to that. And because this was a rapid housing project, and we'll also talk about that, some of the shovel readiness of it, as far as some of the approvals with the land and the funding, that actually happened through a little bit different venue. That was, the government led that. Although, like I was saying, where Nick manages our customers, helping them from concept to completion, for a lot of our developer and builder clients, we'll do the integrated design and advanced construction. And remember, like I said in the intro, to me, modular construction fits here in this advanced construction, but you really need to apply the principles of modular construction in design. And I'm going to bring up a slide later, but basically 5 main points. You need to design, build, ship, crane, and integrate with modular practices in mind. So that's the integrated design piece. So we've helped a lot of builders and developers. So a lot of stick builders who are interested in this and they don't know where to start. We help them by doing an integrated design and then the construction of it. And we've done literally full turnkey projects for them. We've done some that they say, hey, we're here local and we want to take care of all of our development permit and all of our services. We just want you to work with the factories and do the design, do the construction and the integration of it and full lockup. So we'll do that. But I think it's important to talk about the entire project journey, because a lot of operators and even developers, all projects start with this shovel readiness. And they all have to go through, obviously there has to be a need, there has to be land, you have to do a concept and a budget and a timeline, and then you have to get funding. And so what we've noticed is on a lot of projects, operators don't have that development skill set up front. So we also can help with that as a service. But then ultimately, once the funding is unlocked, then we move through design and build. And I would just, one more comment before maybe we take more questions, because I think in context is so important here, is what I've noticed too many times is you'll have set drawings from either architects or from past projects that are not modular conducive. Or even in the early stages, you'll have some initial designs that you then even get pre-development approvals on. And then down here you say, hey, I'd like to get into advanced construction. Well, you kind of can't. So there's so many things that you got to incorporate at the very beginning. And if that's the one thing I would ask you to take away, if it comes to, if you're interested in doing modular, you have to make sure that it works for how manufacturing can get built in the most effective and efficient way. You can build it inefficiently, ineffectively, but it's going to cost more. If you actually want it to make a difference and to be comparable and compatible with what you're doing, you got to start it early. So long answer. If I do that every time, we're never going to get through this. But I do see, is there any more questions at this point?
Yes, we have a few more, Alex. And you might be getting into this a little bit later, but Paul is asking, what are the main challenges that modular housing faces in terms of regulatory processes, zoning restrictions, and public perception? Does each province have a unique set of challenges?
Perfect. I am going to cover that in a different slide. So I'm going to go through that in detail. From a perception perspective, when I first got into this about 15 years ago, I actually thought that there was a perception of modular, with the respect to maybe trailers or, not built to as high of a standard. And what's funny is what my research has shown, that everyone who's in the housing industry, which probably includes all of you because you're on the call, we actually all have this potential perception, but we haven't seen any of that perception with customers that we build for, who are a little bit less intuitive when it comes to construction. Actually, I've almost seen the opposite, where they're like, well, yeah, it's built in a factory. Isn't everything else that I buy built in a factory? Why would it not be? So it's actually quite fascinating how I think the perception is mostly within the construction industry. It's not within the end user space. And then the other pieces I'll talk about here in a minute.
We do have a question from Jordan as well, who is asking about BC step code and how modular might fit into that. And we are covering very well the energy efficiency metrics in terms of code efficiency and airtightness in our presentation. So we'll get to that in a few slides as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'll have a perfect answer on which step it is, but we might be able to between now and then, because we are going to be building in BC here, and I'm sure someone on the call will know. But yeah, good question. Anything else?
Yeah, maybe we can do one more. Conventional financing does not permit prefab, as we know. And so how does financing work on a project like this?
Yeah, great question. There's definitely work that has to get done for the financing to align with this level of construction. My understanding over the years has been the reason financiers are not willing to either not willing to apply deposits or even progress work is because their mortgage that a financer would have is on land. It's on an actual physical title. And until the product is put on that site, there's this whether it's real or perceived, there's this notion of they can't secure against it. I think there's probably some workarounds that haven't been commercialized yet. But to date, what we've done is we just have a really strong relationship with Modular Factory, and we work through terms. And then we make sure that obviously when the boxes are complete, we crane them as fast as possible and do the bank draw at that time. So we've been able to do it the most effective that we can, but there's still lots of gaps on the financing that I think would really help unlock future opportunities.
Yeah, we've seen some creative solutions. One of the ways is that each module is assigned a serial number right off the bat. And so we provide that information right back to the financing partners who are then able to, place that investment, maybe not on site, but it's still tied to the project funds.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Perfect. Well, then let's keep going here. So this project journey, now instead of being a straight line, more of a circle, just to kind of show that if we do this right, you know, the pre-development, design, and build, and I wouldn't get too hung up on the location of where we've put these. It just more shows that there's a lot of involvement consistently. And so as we walk through this successful project, I think one of the things here to help tie in is from a government perspective. So some of the problems. So obviously there's a housing shortage. And as part of the national housing strategy, there was a shortage around vulnerable and targeted individuals. And so they were testing a new initiative, this rapid housing initiative. So I'm not going to walk into all the details, but obviously there were compressed timelines, and there was both project stream and there was city stream. And so I'll just share a little bit about, so this particular example, this building was done through the RHI funding stream. It was done on time and on budget. I appreciate Natasha's words here. She's been in the housing industry for over 20 years, and she made the comment that it's most stress-free. I can tell you there was a lot of stress on our end. I'm glad that maybe she didn't feel as much as we have. And not because it was modular and not because of the rapid timelines. It's actually because of some of the other pieces that I'm going to talk about here later, and how I think there's huge opportunities to continue to evolve. But what I do like is, if you actually start to pull some of the stats on these rapid housing, we've pulled off all of the rapid housing for stages 1 and 2 in Saskatchewan. We're actually at 100% completion. I believe Big Block, us as an organization, have helped Silver Sage with 29 units, Comfy with 14 units. So I believe 71% of the 100% that's completed, we were a part of. And very interesting, we actually did both the rapid housing in Saskatoon and this rapid housing in Regina. And the Saskatoon one, through a little tweak on how they approached it, was actually done about 7-8 months earlier. Now, a little bit smaller project, a little bit less complex, so it's not perfectly apples to apples, but I am going to talk about how the municipality involvement can play a role. But again, from a government perspective, they're testing this new initiative, this rapid housing. What I really, really hope is that they unpack the learnings and they scale these successful projects. They scale the learnings, because I truly believe that we've demonstrated it to be successful. It has a place across the prairies and across Canada. And I do think if we make sure that we take less of a shotgun approach of trying everything, and we make sure that when opportunities that work present themselves, that we dive in and we really scale those, because I think that's what's going to help solve the bigger problem. And as I kind of talk about that, what I maybe just realized is, for some reason, I think the presentation skipped over this problem, setting the stage. So I'll go through this quickly before I go through each one of those. We all know, we've heard this 3.5 million unit shortfall. So again, to put that in perspective, if we're building roughly 250,000 right now a year, over the next 10 years, that's 2.5 million. The current estimates are we're another 350,000 short every year, which over 10 years will be 3.5 million. So we have to more than double. And according to CMHC, developers need to be more productive, and government needs to make regulatory systems faster and more efficient. So that's the problem. They've identified it. I swear there was more in there, but for some reason it's not loading up. So that's okay. I guess that's one way to cut out a bunch of slides. Okay, so where were we? Government, let's see here. My apologies. Some of this just got done. Here we are. Okay, so back to this. What I was going to say is, we're testing that new initiative, the rapid housing. Here's a success, but really capitalizing on scaling it. And there's more opportunities coming out, right? We've heard about the Housing Accelerator Fund, which is being launched in a few areas already. And there's some really unique industrial strategies. If you've heard Minister Fraser talk about this coming out, and the CHB is working on a sector, that's supposed to be sector, not section, sector transition plan. Really unique opportunities to scale some of these solutions. I hope they align with the positives and the best practices out of the rapid housing, but I guess we'll we'll see how that plays in. So from a municipality perspective, some of the problems, so I think, and we're talking with the municipality later this month, actually, through one of our codes meetings, and the RHI program, it can actually add, well, it did add a level of administration, but it also could, and it can add a burden to the municipality. I'm not going to speak for Regina on that and say that it did, but it does add more complexities and a level of administration, which then requires, refocusing resources to develop RFPs and selecting partners and negotiating terms. And then what they did in Regina, actually, because they kind of have some of this expertise in-house, is they actually identified, acquired the land, and they did the proper community public consultations to get it building ready. So that process took longer than the way Saskatoon's approach was. But again, based on the nuances, you can't exactly compare them apples to apples. But from a municipal perspective, that's what they did. And they led that initiative to help find and acquire the land. And so that's what they did in their particular case. And I do think going forward, the more land that is properly zoned and available for whether it's nonprofit housing operators or whether it's for more market or developers, it all starts with land. And again, I tie it back to that land acknowledgement, because that's the one thing that's so key to all of this. There has to be serviced and zoned land, appropriate land. From an architect's perspective,
just going to jump in just really quickly as we're wrapping up the government, like the government and then also the municipality slides. One of the things that I've noticed as I've worked with operator groups, and we work with investor or developer or builder groups as well, is this kind of irony around how complex some of these nonprofit delivered projects can be. They require a lot of different coordination of levels of government, of different funding requirements, and they end up being way more complex. And so I'm really eager for the opportunity to share some of the learnings that we've developed through some of these nonprofit-led projects, to kind of share how we've helped reduce risk or make the project more streamlined and simplified, because there are a lot of those projects that are very highly needed in our country, and unfortunately they're much more difficult to pull off than your standard kind of purpose-built rental led by a builder or an investor. So
yeah, Nick, no, it's a really, really good point, and thank you for jumping in. Yeah, I was going to talk more on that, but I'm like, from a time perspective, I'll just keep moving on. As you can tell, we have lots to share. We would love to learn more. We're going to share our numbers at the end. Please reach out, because this doesn't stop here. I hope what this does is it helps showcase a little bit of how this can work, but clearly through collaboration and partnership, you got to invest the time to understand more. So just putting that out there. From an architect's perspective, what we've noticed is a lot of time design efforts with the intent to celebrate culture are not realized. We've had some architects tell us that well over 50%, as high as even 75% of their designs don't move forward. To me, that seems like a big waste of time and effort and money and hope and purpose. So a solution on this particular project, especially when you're dealing with modular and how I said you got to bring the design to the forefront, will protect everyone throughout the entire housing journey. And so if when we're working with a modular company, we understand that we've booked line spots, we then have to honor that. You can't just say, you know what, we're going to be a week late or 7 weeks late, or we haven't figured this out, so we'll push it back 3 months. You commit to a line spot. It's a manufacturing facility. You have to hit timelines. And so that can be difficult when you aren't in control. And so what we found is by being the lead on the project as a development partner, we work with the architects and we give them full reins within parameters that they can be successful at. And through that collaboration, that integrated design, we increase the project success rate. And I think sometimes change is required. I'm not saying that we should be leading all projects, but I can tell you, if we're going to make a difference right now, at least in the early stages, I've seen a lot of projects that have been run not by development partners with modular experience, And unfortunately, it was just another case 2 weeks ago where a design build general contractor in Calgary, who's been around for 10 years, went bankrupt. And the latest that we can tell is a couple of their projects were extreme delays. And it puts everyone in a very, very difficult position. So by recognizing how manufacturing works and then working with architects and engineers to align on where we can win, we can get some really great examples. We've worked with David Fortin over the years. He's an amazing Métis architect. Actually worked with him initially back in a Round Prairie Elders Lodge. That got some international recognition a couple of years ago. But this is where we do integrated design. There's lots to talk about here. Engaging with Indigenous-owned firms in Regina, Stone and Arrow, through Stantec partnership. And then what I think this image really speaks to how you can integrate the modularity into a building that is suitable and appropriate for what Natasha and the Silver Sage team needed. And I mean, there's lots and lots to talk about. I'll probably just, for lack of time, skip over a few things. But, you know, one thing I think I'd wanted to share is that David said, you know, you can't reinvent the wheel on every project if you're trying to do something fairly straightforward with modest expectations. And he said, Big Block and us, within the modesty, we all want to believe that we can do something that this is a place that people are proud to go home to. And I think it's a powerful quote. And so here's some renderings, our sod turning ceremony. This unique design, these beautiful sunshades from a solar passive perspective. Actually, David T. Fortin collaborated with a local artist who provided input on the TP poles and creating the hand-drawn design for these sunshades based on the TP and the geometry used on the ribbon skirts. So what an amazing opportunity. I'm an engineer by trade, which is maybe why I like helping solve some of the housing problem, but really letting architects excel and helping our customers see the benefit. It's so rewarding, especially when you can tie that into advanced construction methods. Got to be very careful. We have turned down a tremendous amount of work because architects came with a finished plan and said, make it modular. And it doesn't work, at least not in my experience. And when I polled everyone last year in Ottawa with respect to some of the challenges around modular construction and architects, is that just some of the principles, the design principles, are different. And if we don't respect those, it's going to be very difficult. So again, today what I'm recommending is having a development partner with modular experience lead that process. Tying into the problems and solutions for code officials. So this one, I think the fragmented interpretation and inefficient application throughout different municipalities is very, very challenging. Code harmonization, both regulation and facilitation. That's what's going to be important. If the code is all harmonized, but our interpretation or the facilitation of it is not harmonized, we haven't actually accomplished anything. And I think those are powerful words and powerful things that we have to understand. And so if we can get some national, pre-approved designs, or even provincial or product type pre-approved designs. I mean, when you buy a phone, it was designed at one point and then mass produced. For modular to win, we need to move to the same type of thought process. We can't keep reinventing the wheel. Here's an interesting, on this particular project, we actually achieved the building permit on March 28th, but the building was craned into place about 2 weeks later. And so when I talk about some of the unnecessary risk that we had to take, you can probably connect the dots and figure out what that is. If you look below, I thought a couple stats was fascinating on this. On this particular project, we had 3 permits: development, foundation, building permit. Now, you could argue we didn't need a foundation permit. You could have just done a building permit, but the complexities of what we encountered at a development permit stage at the local municipality was so overwhelming that this project would never get off the ground. For all 3 permits, from the start of a development submission to the end of the building permit was 196 days. But what's even more, I think, astonishing is it took 142 days to build this 20,000 square foot, these modular buildings in a factory. It took longer than that just to review and approve the permits. not for us to create and submit. The review and approve of the permits took longer than it did to build. So think about how many people are involved on reviewing and approving versus how many people coming together to build a multi-million-dollar complex. There's a problem. So huge opportunities there. I do have a video. I think I'll use this opportunity to share. Maybe if there's any questions at this point, Nick, feel free to answer.
There may be, but just before, I'll just give you a 5-minute sort of. If we have 10 minutes left, so if you can wrap it up in 5 to 8, then we still have maybe one more chance at another question at the end. I think there is one, Nick, though, if you want to speak to it.
Yeah, it's a question, and I don't think I have a great answer. Are there specific challenges that arise when implementing modular projects at scale in areas where there's a strong union presence, i.e. Ontario?
Sorry, Nick, I was loading that up. I didn't hear it.
Just a question about union presence, strong union presence in some jurisdictions, and if that creates challenges for implementing modular projects at scale.
We haven't ran across that, but I'm sure it could. We haven't ran across it, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, well, to do this in 5 minutes is going to be next to impossible, but I will. And Frank, is there any chance of going over, or is that a hard no?
That's a question to Chloe, our communications advisor here today. I don't think we have another webinar scheduled right now, so we could go a little longer. Is that correct, Chloe? Probably checking right now. Yes, she said we can. Perfect. You have the right to go, but if we can keep it sort of a little over, that would be great.
Yeah, I will do my best. I'm going to speed things up. You know that I like to share. There's a ton of information here. It is difficult to get through it all.
Perfect.
Now I have to stop talking so I can think. Okay, so back to sharing the screen. Okay, I think that was the last video for that. So hopefully you got to see a little bit about how the pieces all come together. We craned that in a day and a half. Another interesting fact, our current craning crew actually can crane 30 units in a day and a half. The most we've ever done is about 34 units in one day. So however you want to slice and dice the data, we actually have the ability to crane over 5,000 units a year with a one crew that we currently have. So imagine if we can start to solve some of these more systemic problems. We actually have the answers right in front of us, which is pretty exciting. Okay, so moving on to the engineer side of it, we re-engineer buildings every time. We can do this more. We can repeat this, and national pre-approved designs accomplishes this. Talking with our staff, roughly 80% of this is repeat. So why are we going through the 149 days every single time? We don't need to do that. Obviously, there's things that are more site relevant. We'll deal with that. But now modular construction. So before I get into the factory stuff, it's really kind of important to understand, again, some of the key considerations: design, build, ship, crane, integrate with modular in mind. Easier said than done. Lots of modular construction benefits. I urge you one of two things. Step one, go tour a factory. Once you tour a factory, everything changes. Number two, there's some great videos out there, and feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to explain. But the benefits to building like this, they're many. So with that, going into the manufacturing, the problem I still believe is we're trying to solve we can solve a massive problem, but right now we're doing a lot of smaller, more customized solutions. And when you do that, we're really not capitalizing on the benefits of scale. If it's custom, it's less consistent. And so again, what we've done is we've taken the lead to at least copy and paste as much as we can for some consistencies across municipalities. But even then, if interpretation isn't the same, it's difficult. And again, my point to, if a project cost is vastly weighted to hard costs, i.e. modular construction, I really do believe that constructability needs to be brought to the forefront, especially when advanced construction methods. I'll skip over utilities and insurance really quickly because I think we have less of them on the call. We're talking about energy usage throughout the building life and affordability. And obviously air tightness and enhanced quality assurance. We've partnered with Saskatchewan New Home Warranty on this project. This building's 48% less heating energy. Some specific specs here below as far as triple pane, R24, 6 inches of exterior, R80 in the attic, 0.6 or 0.86 air changes for those who follow that. That's a really, really cool accomplishment on a building of this scale.
That kind of addresses Jordan's question. And I think, like, I'm not super familiar with the step code in BC, but it's either like, it's probably either the highest or close to the highest. Like passive house is 0.5 air changes per hour. So we're in the realm there. I don't know the exact step though, so don't quote me on that.
Yeah, and I think Net Zero Ready is maybe more like part 3 or part 4, and I think it's modeled at 1.5 air changes per, and we came in at 0.86 on some smaller product, 800 square foot and 1250 square foot, because this is a 20,000 square foot building, was all tested as one, but some of the smaller product we've come in under half an air change per hour, and that's all with standard regular quality building practices. It's not with any advanced blown in aero barrier or expensive products. It was done in a very sustainable manner, and I think a lot of it is really the benefits of building in a factory when the temperature is controlled and people can respect adhesions and products in a designed environment that they were created for. It increases the resiliency of it. And then as far as insurance companies goes, this is actually really starting to become more and more relevant as far as resiliency and increased claims, which adds to rising insurance costs, and recognizing the benefits, of different product types and the resiliency is going to play a big impact. And so, obviously when you're building to certain standards, whether it be a quality assurance, this really ties into insurance premiums, or can tie in. And so there's huge opportunities that can be capitalized on the insurance side of it. So I think with that, we're getting close. We see too many times that projects are abandoned without shovels getting in the ground for a lot of reasons. And so as a development partner, I think it's really important, because as we get more and more complex, our job is to streamline them, bridging capacity, de-risking projects, removing barriers, integrating all these different collaborators, accelerating the occupancy, and controlling outcomes. If we're given the lead on a project, we will guarantee the success of it. We've both done fixed fee and we've done fixed price, but we have to have control if we're going to guarantee the success of a project. And like I said, as the project get more and more complicated, you almost need that to be able to deliver this. And this was a fixed price and a fixed timeline. There's no way to do that unless someone can make the final decisions, and the relationships with our customers are extremely important. So here's a few pictures, February, April, and September. And again, some of the services that we offer. I believe we're on the last couple slides. Just going to talk a little bit about maybe the future of where this could go. So from a project team perspective, really got to pay respect and tribute to all of these individuals and the teams. If it wasn't with collaboration, innovation, and action, we wouldn't have been able to accomplish it. And we have amazing relationships that we're happy to talk about. And if anyone's following, obviously Minister Fraser is doing a lot with respect to housing right now. And I touched on it a little bit already with Housing Accelerator Fund, or with factory built homes. Like this literally came out here on Friday. I think this was a couple days ago. He's talking about innovation within the construction industry and some of the industrialization of it. And so I believe this is our last slide. And it really is time to take action. And so I appreciate you joining today, but there's so much more we can do. If you want to collaborate on what we've presented and actually provide feedback, good or bad, we're on a journey to build communities at full throttle. The more we have perspective, the better we can be. Happy to share this story or many other examples. We can dive deeper into any one of the specifics I've talked about. Partner, obviously, on projects we can help you with, unlocking opportunities, adding input, and scaling. So here's my contact and Nick's, and I think Frank, and I guess the question should be, how are you going to help building communities at full throttle? And I think Frank's probably going to take over and share his slide. And look at that. See, still maybe pulled it in under the wire.
Well, you did really well there, Alex. Thank you. So, yeah, I'm going to show just the last closing slide, really. And not that we're closing. I would actually like maybe Kathleen to take 5 minutes and see. I see that we have some more questions.
Yeah.
And Nick and Alex, you wanted to make this interactive, so maybe Kathleen, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, I want to start with maybe a couple of the easy
Nick,
ones,
yeah.
a couple easy questions here that because I'm monitoring them in the chat. So Richard asks if the air tightness is in the factory once assembled. Those are from post-assembly, basically before possession. Actually, a few weeks ago, we had the performance of the building measured. So we do standard blower door test for that.
And can I add to that, Nick? Actually, we are working on a code change to allow in-factory testing, at least for single manufactured housing, because for units that leave the factory finished, the air tightness tested in the factory is the same and or better in the field. Just wanted to put that in. So we're working on removing some of these barriers for other products as well.
And that's a really good point. Wouldn't really work on this project, but yeah, it would work for the more kind of single family product.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Any issues addressing the extra floor height? Typically, we don't see that. We do have to, be careful with that in terms of shipping constraints as well. So generally, we're 10-foot ceiling height product to kind of get around that. We do have a question. What is the difference from other modular home companies? The distance from the manufacturer to actual job site can be very far. What is your distance limit to distribute? I think what sets us apart really is the overarching project management, the kind of integration. We understand both the general site requirements and also the factory requirements, and we integrate those. So we act really as a builder with modular expertise that's able to deliver these homes. And really, there is no limit. I think, cost becomes a limit, right? Because extra transportation does come at an extra cost. So
yeah, and if I can add a bit more color, I appreciate you sharing that. There really is no limit. There can be maybe efficiencies gained with working with factories that are closer from a shipping perspective, but you also then have to tie in the labor and the materials, their pricing, their availability in the factory. So, for example, we have a great relationship with Grandeur Housing out of Winkler, Manitoba. They're building a project that we're delivering actually as we speak in Kimberley, BC. So I don't know how far that is. I haven't done the math, but that's the longest we've done. But I can tell you, whether you talk to Champion or SRI Factory, Triple M, Grandeur, these guys have had stories that they'll ship thousands of kilometers, and it does make more economic sense. So there's a lot of factors that come into it. Maybe I'll just leave it at that.
We have a couple questions about cost, Alex. One person just straight up asks if there's a cost savings or if it's just time. And another person asks, how does it compare to traditional stick construction on a per square foot basis? Basically, is it competitive?
Yeah, so those are great questions. And again, they're very difficult ones to answer because every situation is a bit unique and different. So, for example, the one I'm talking about right now, some of the analysis that we've done on shipping out to BC for this particular client, for this particular build, and for the analysis that we've done on site shows that on this particular project, it was about an 8 to 10% premium, but they also couldn't get it built on time. So is it a premium in today's dollars? Well, what happens if it's next year? Maybe it's the same price. I know that when we've done large volume, we've had it very, very comparable at the exact same price. And that does not include any of the time savings or the earlier, rent that you might be collecting. There's a lot of pieces that go into it. And I think I've heard everything. I've heard some people say, no, there's more material and it's a better product and it should cost more. And those are true statements. I've also seen where it can be cheaper. I've seen when you tie in all the different pieces and what is valuable to each person. If you can't actually get it built, or if you can compress it in a year, what is that worth? So there is no great answer on that. I do believe, though, I strongly believe, because right now our industry, of the 100% of housing that gets built, 2% roughly is modular construction. That's it. I am confident that once we get to a larger mass adoption of modular, it will be cheaper, hands down. I know that for a fact. We're at 2%. You can make arguments, I think, right now, either way, it's cheaper or it's more expensive. But I think long term, there's a reason phones, vehicles are built in a factory. Housing will be too.
Nick, did you want to go through some others, or Kathleen, did you have any that you had earmarked potentially for maybe as a last one or two before we close it off?
Yeah, maybe a couple last questions. Max width that can be manufactured. So just to be clear, we're not in the manufacturing space. That's more of a question for the facilities that we partner with. But generally, transportation restrictions typically dictate the maximum module width and height and length. So we're looking at about 22 feet. Practically, you can go wider, but then the costs of transportation become much higher because you need multiple pilot vehicles and police escorts and that kind of thing. So, and
yeah,
it really
so again,
is
my answer, and I think we're probably going to do a disservice to Max. The modular companies will do a much better job. Again, I take that whole design, build, ship, crane and integrate into place. You can ship really, really wide and quite tall. But again, how many power lines are you going through? And yeah, you have a higher escort vehicles, but if you have no connections, it might make sense. If you're doing a modular project like this, what we've found, and we've done about 3,000 boxes now on the prairies over the past 12 years, a sweet spot for us seems to be that 22 feet and less, and up to about 76 feet. Kind of works for the prairies really, really well from an efficiency perspective. But again, that's kind of based on how we build with underground parking and not, and the bedroom types. So that's maybe good enough to start. It
really depends on the region that you deliver to and the transportation regulations. And I see a lot of other questions coming in that relate to either the shipping or the manufacturing, actually. Just maybe another pointing out that our page, our webpage with the QR code has the videos, and Alex, you referred to it, about the factory process, also about the overall process that talks about transportation a little bit. A lot of the answers you'll probably find there. Also on the longevity, there's one question, durability. We did have a webinar on sustainable advantages of modular construction. I urge you to review those when you have time. They're all about an hour long. This one will be our longest, in the record set there. And with that, maybe I'll wrap it up, if that's okay. I'd like
Frank,
to...
Frank, yes. I know you want to wrap it up, but when I heard you make the comment about durability or resiliency, I don't want to leave everyone hanging. I mean, obviously it's important to unpack that, but I think the key question when it comes to that, because it sometimes is, well, does this product last as long? It's, if everything was installed in ideal conditions, isn't it going to last longer?
Yeah. So the webinar, with that, now the gist of that webinar is that not only are we saving 43% in actual GHG emissions during the process, considering that we can build the same energy efficiency, and there are so many other benefits of waste reduction and so on. We have a whole hour to explain that, even from comparing site-built companies and their entire operation to becoming modular. There are huge savings there. We have, as I said, there's a whole webinar. I urge you to replay that, and maybe we'll promote that in the next coming days. So again, with that, thanks everyone for listening and participating. Great questions, and thank you, Nick and Alex. We hope everyone enjoyed this inspiring story, and we hope that you'll be interested in learning more about the opportunities and benefits that we just discussed that modular construction holds in Canada. And all that's left for me is to remind you that we will post the slide deck. I think that was also a question. We will post the slide deck and the recording, hopefully even by tomorrow. So we encourage you to visit our member factory websites. As Alex mentioned earlier, they have great videos. You don't even have to travel to a factory if you don't know where the one is. You can just go to them. Also, one of our webinars actually has fly-through through Triple M in Lethbridge, if you want to see how the factory looks like. And our CHBA portal sends you to all of those, the members' web pages and the videos. And as you may have seen on the intro slides, the next and last webinar of this series will be financing for factory build. That was also a question, so we'll get deeper into that. We don't have a date yet, so stay tuned for announcements. And with that, I thank you for joining us again, and have a great day. And thank you to the speakers, Alex and Nick. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.